Welcome to another episode of Thyme Travelers. This time we're hitting the road and heading to Charlotte, North Carolina and visiting Good Road Cider Works.
The name Good Road actually is a loose translation of my French last name, which is Beauchemin. And it's actually technically means beautiful path, but we did not want to be the Beautiful Path Cidery, so we went with Good Road. We are known here for making dry ciders, a lot of single varietals as well, just like wines. Like you can have a Cabernet that's a single varietal. We have, like for instance, this is our Newtown Pippin. Newtown Pippin is an apple that Thomas Jefferson grew, and he actually fermented back in the day as well. So we typically have 4 or 5 single varietals available, and then we have, like what you're drinking, a ginger cider, a hop cider, blueberry and peach. We actually can't make enough blueberry to keep the people happy here, which is a good thing. So our ciders have no sugars, no adjuncts, no additives. It is apples, yeast, and the blueberry and the peach that we use are straight blueberry and straight peach as well. So we're as natural as you can get.
It's health food.
It's health food, yes, and it's our apple a day.
The process for making cider isn't the same for making beer. Instead of using heat or boiling, cider making uses cold tanks.
We are cider makers. We don't brew anything here. Brewing is like whether you're brewing beer or brewing coffee involves hot water, heating things up. With beer, you're boiling to extract the hops and the bitterness for the hops and all that. We are just really a cold side operation. So we get our juice pressed at an orchard up in Taylorsville, North Carolina. We have some juice that comes from Virginia, then of course the New Hampshire juice that I mentioned as well. That arrives here in totes, just 250-gallon totes, and it goes right into the tanks with yeast and nutrients, and that is it. But to give you an idea, like these are white wine tanks. So we are technically a winery, both with the cider and the meads that Kevin will talk about. This tank, for example, these two hold 500 gallons. This is a 1,000-gallon tank. And then the big one down there is a 2,000-gallon tank. So we have a wide variety of different size tanks. This is really our only link to the brewing world, in that these are bright tanks, and that is how we carbonate our cider. You can have still ciders just like wines, but we prefer our ciders carbonated. And just like the brewing world, we will, once the process is done, once the cider is fermented, we'll move them in, we'll filter them to give the nice clarity that we have here. And then, once they go in the bright tanks, we inject them with CO2, and that gives them the carbonation. From there, they're kegged and brought to our tap room or out to different establishments here in town.
Good Road Cider Works not only makes handcrafted dry ciders, they make the best artisan meads as well. Head mead maker and co-owner Kevin Martin shares how he became an award-winning maker of mead. Ironically, it began at a Renaissance festival.
I started making mead back in 1994, and as an amateur, it became a passion for me because I actually did have a mead at a Renaissance festival. And I was, not to be insulting, unimpressed. I read a book called The New Complete Joy of Home Brewing by Charlie Papazian, who actually is the gentleman that started the AHA, which is the American Home Brewers Association. And there were some mead recipes in it. I tried making one, and the fermentation went very well. The end product was, in fact, fabulously terrible. And I took that as a challenge. It became my white whale. So I worked at it and worked at it after that. Now, once I started getting better at that and started competing, I entered a competition, won my first ribbon. I was bitten by the competition bug, and I became 3rd place Mead Maker of the Year for North Carolina based on that first competition. And after that, I was in the top 3 for Mead and Cider Maker of the Year for North Carolina for about the next, 2001, about the next 15 years. And I was 1st place in 2005 and 6, and 1st place in 2013 and 14. Mead became my passion because of the early failure. Since it was a challenge, I decided to just really stick with it and work with it.
As he discovered and shared with us, Mead is the first fermented or alcoholic beverage on Earth, and he's working on a mead based on an Ethiopian recipe.
Every known society has a variant of mead, and in fact, one of the few societies that actually still has mead as its national beverage is Ethiopia. And in Ethiopia, it's called tej. And my hope is for us to actually start producing some here. I just have to source a few specific ingredients that are used in that Ethiopian variant. Just something of note is so that people understand that it's not all Norse and Northern European. It is something that is actually a global thing, and it exists pretty much everywhere.
It's amazing how simple ingredients like honey, water, and yeast can create such a wide variety of meads. When using the right honey, meads can be just as complex as a fine wine.
Honey would be to mead as grape juice is to wine, as apple juice is to cider, as malt extract or wort is to beer. Now, much like grapes, different kinds of honey produce different flavors and different aromatics. If you have, say, a wildflower honey, that will be honey from multiple floral sources. If you have, say, avocado blossom honey, which, as a matter of fact, this is our bestseller. This is our signature mead. It's called Avogadro's Trail. It is honey that is sourced from the nectar of the avocado blossom. Now, this was actually a lucky happenstance because I'd never heard of avocado blossom honey before. And we tasted the honey, and it had these rich caramel notes and something that kind of reminded me of brown butter and dried apricot, and I thought this is going to be a really good mead. We got to get some more as soon as we can. And when fermented, it maintained those characteristics through, and it comes through in the aroma and the flavor. And so we ended up with this. Now, other forms of honey, like orange blossom, is a very common form of honey that's used, and it gives you those same citrus notes that you would get in an orange grove. You can get things like blueberry blossom honey, blackberry blossom honey, and each one is unique based on its floral source. And then you decide, do you want it carbonated or do you want it still? Because you can do that with mead, just like you do with ciders and wines, you know. It can be still like a nice wine, or it can be carbonated all the way up to the point of a champagne.
The best part of my job is that I get to sample almost everything.
This is a really dry cider, very apple forward, a little tart, and it has a little spiciness with it as well. And we like them dry. You can't get much drier than that one there. And that is about 6.7% alcohol. The next one is Limber Twig, also a single varietal, but that one is 8.2%. So it's a much bigger, higher alcohol cider. Once again, single varietal, but it is lots more sugars in the apples itself, which causes that higher alcohol. More apple forward as well, a little more tannins, a little more alcohol bite as well. The next one we call Tye's Blend, and that is a blend of 5 apples, and Tye is the name of the orchard grower. With the blend of apples that are involved with it, when you taste it, you get some apricot, you get a little peach, you get the apple that comes through. So similar to like a Sauvignon Blanc. The varying fruits and the spiciness that you're tasting are coming from just the apples themselves, and a little bit of the wine yeast that we use, but we really try to use clean yeast that just let the apples and the varying fruits and spices come through on their own.
And there's just as many complex variations with meads as well.
Well, meads are made with honey, and everything on top of that is extra. So if you make a mead with pears, that would be a pear melomel. But if you make a mead with apples, that's called a cider, because historically that's a very common style. If you make a mead with grape juice, that would be called a piment. If you make a mead with mulberries, that's a morat. But yeah, basically a mead must have honey, and anything after that is extra.
Good Road Cider Works has really broadened my palate. When it comes to understanding ciders and meads, they will certainly have a place alongside my fine wines and craft beers. I will surely be buying ciders and meads from Good Road. Visit Good Road Cider Works, located at 117 Southside Drive, Charlotte, North Carolina, and follow them on Facebook at Good Road Cider Works. Thanks for watching Thyme Travelers.